So welcome to episode 121 of the Campus Comics Cast. I am joined on this episode by
Mike Atchison
and Shad Schubert.
So we'll get to find out this episode if we are having a nice homecoming, if we are far from home, or if there is no way home back from this particular episode after we talk about Spider-Man, the latest Spider-Man movie. And of course, we're also going to wrap up our discussion of Immortal Hulk with volumes 9 and 10. And then if we have time, we may add a new little feature to each of the episodes. And we'll save that little teaser there towards the very end. So we're just going to jump right into Immortal Hulk. We're going to try to cover issues 41 through 50 and see how it goes. So we've kind of divvied up the issues between the three of us. So I think Mike, you're gonna start us off with issue 41.
Yeah, I sure can.
All right.
So issue 41, and I could probably just spend 10 minutes talking about the cover because this is an outstanding cover. It's my favorite cover of the whole series. And, and that's saying a lot because there's a lot of, with Alex Ross, it's just either good, better, or best. And this is really has that Norman Rockwell look to it. The detail of, Hulk and Thing sitting in this diner, both of them crushing. Of course, Hulk is crushing his seat and table more than the Thing is, but they both are crushing the booth while they have their whatever breakfast or whatever. But the really nice piece is the waitress is holding her pot of coffee, and she's giving the Hulk kind of a what for look, like, really, you're gonna tear up my diner? Hulk's just looking at her like, I don't know what to do. Yes, so really a good cover. And
note, this scene does not appear in the issue.
No, no, it doesn't.
I just noticed that the reflection in the window, you got a reflection of Joe Fixit.
Or Joe Fixit,
or Bruce Banner. Yeah, I'm not sure who it is in there.
Yeah, it's definitely Joe Fixit with the mustache, but I didn't notice that at first either. But again, great detail work by Ross. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of a prelude to the two monster type heroes meeting throughout. And so the next, actually before the story proper, there's a couple of panels that are from Fantastic Four number 5. Of course, written by Stan Lee and art by Jack Kirby, but it's a scene where Johnny Storm is reading an issue of the Incredible Hulk, and he says to the Thing, he says, "Well, I'll be doggone if this monster doesn't remind me of the Thing." So, and of course, the Thing says, "Very funny," So again, a nice little, I like that touch. And as far as the story goes, we're introduced to Professor McGowan trying to find a new safe house. It's one that she'd put together or secured sometime before. It's fully equipped, and then we cut right back to Coney Island where we have the obligatory fight between the two heroes, Hulk and Thing, and they're just busting it up. But it's a really emaciated Hulk. It's been a while since we've done this, but I forgot exactly why he had all that drained out of him. It had to do with all the gamma had been sucked by one of the other personalities, I think. But because of that, he's getting his butt handed to him by the Thing. So at the end of the fight, the Thing is basically realizing, well, the Hulk's, remember, this is the big guy, and he's basically a child. And before the Hulk can say it's clobbering time, you got the Hulk starting to cry and saying, "Please don't hurt me." And it's actually pretty sad because, like, man, this is the Hulk, but you realize he is mentally and emotionally a child here. But the Thing sort of like can't pull back completely before he ends up landing the punch, and it ends up turning the Hulk back into Joe Fixit. And that's where Joe Fixit kind of says, dude, what's wrong with you? You know, he's a kid. You just punched or you're beating up on a kid. So,
well, he actually punched. He changed back before he took the punch. So he was actually, the thing hit Joe
sure.
Fixit. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Right. That's right. That's a better, more accurate way to explain it, because he was throwing the punch. The Hulk turned back to Joe Fixit. When it was landed, it hit Joe Fixit, and he sort of chastised them.
Shattered most of his bones.
Yeah, he's sitting there with his arms broken, and and Ben's like, well, he hit me first, so he's offering to give him some, take him to a hospital, get his arms fixed up, but somehow he's able to partially transform back into the Hulk to where he can heal. And then he goes back to being Joe Fixit, and he's got his arms back in good shape. So the next scene is them, and it's the closest we get to the diner scene. It's not the Thing and the Hulk, it's the Thing and Joe Fixit sitting there. So a little bit more believable. At least Joe Fixit kind of can fit into the booth without crushing it. And they're just going through the whole discussion. It's a lot of conversation of the trouble that the Hulk's been going through, and Ben Grimm has been offers him the Fantastic Four's help, but Fixit says, you know what, I think we got this. If we need you, we'll reach out. Let's see here. It does go a little bit into some detail with the Thing talking about his religious, he's Jewish, and he's talking about the story of Job and sort of making that correlation with the situation that the Hulk is in. So anyway, moving on to Shadow Base Site G. And I'm sorry, once I'm rolling here, I shouldn't keep going. I should pause for you guys to comment on some of this.
Well, there's only 2 pages left in the issue, so you might as well just wrap her up, and then we can go back.
Okay. Anyway, we're on the sort of the epilogue to the story. They're back at Site G, and we have the appearance of I just lost his name. Who's the right-hand man?
It's Rick Jones.
Rick Jones and Del Fry.
Del Fry, right.
They're kind of combined
Mm-hmm.
into one creature. Again, this is uber horror, and it says the man downstairs is the last words on this. So that wraps up issue 41.
The thing for 41 that's important is this, in my mind anyway, is the Thing recounting the story of Job. And I think when we get into the last issue, this little teaser here becomes important. So we can talk more about that whenever we get into issue 50. But we have this scene of Job sitting there looking at this golden figure in the background. Of course, you've got Job with the sores and everything. Don't have any of Job's friends around him, but just Job there, and what is supposed to represent God as basically coming down to speak to Job. So
that's a good point, because I hadn't thought of that scene even after reading the last issue. So yeah, it's definitely connected. Anything, Shad?
Nope, I think you guys hit all the points I was thinking on that one.
All right. Issue 42 is it starts off with well, sometimes I can't even figure out who these monsters are with it's Bruce Banner, I think, that's being shown here upside down, connected to the leader back down in hell, the place below, as the first page, and then we switch over.
And you have the remains of the Devil Hulk there in the upper right hand corner as well.
Oh, yep, okay. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
But we get switched to the main. This is a different artist, by the way. I forget what his name is, but it's not Joe Bennett. He had one person fill in for this issue. So they're in the Alpha Flight space station, and we have Crusher Creel, we have Titania, Puck, and it's actually the Sasquatch, but Scott, he's got
Dr. Langowski, is it the? I'm sorry, I was looking up
Doc
the
Samson's.
pencilers.
Yeah, it's Doc Samson. They're sort of merged, right?
Yeah, there are 4 pencilers listed on this issue. Adam Gorham, Alex Lenz, Rachel Stott, and Joe Bennett are all listed as pencilers.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, yeah.
Gotcha.
But okay, let me go to where you guys are at. Hold on. I was not where I was supposed to be, so sorry about that.
No, I mean, I if I'd have prepared probably better, I would have been able to tell you. I just remember that it's sort of a, there's a lot that happened in this series. In 50 issues, there is a whole heck of a lot that's happened.
Yeah, so that's Dr. Langowski. So we kind of have this Dr. Sasquatch is what he's kind of been referred to as periodically.
Right.
But he was, or it's actually Leonard Sampson as in Sasquatch's body.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. It's not Walter. Walter's somehow separated, and his body's going to be the target of their search here soon.
They went to the wrong door.
Yeah, he went through the wrong door.
Yeah.
So we switch our scene over to Arizona. It's where Jackie McGee, the reporter, has basically she's in a long way. She's being kind of shown the door. They basically the new editor or new owner of the paper, they're basically going to less digital or less print and more digital, and not so many personal pieces. Is just it's just not fitting her style and what she's been doing for a while. So she's going to be out looking for a job. She packs up boxes up her things, and then we switch back to the satellite where you have and I know we were introduced to Gyrich. Is that how you pronounce it?
I always say Henry Peter Gyrich. I don't know if that's the
okay.
pronunciation or not.
So he's the new sort of antagonist against Alpha Flight and the Hulk as far as the government goes. And I did look him up when I was reading this because I really wasn't familiar. But he's got somewhat of a long history with the Avengers and lots of stories.
The first comic book I ever read was Avengers 184, and he was basically instrumental in the Avengers had to kind of become a very, very large team. They had membership all over the place. So it's kind of like it is now. But right. they said, no, we need to cut this down. We need to limit to 6 individuals. And he also introduced diversity into the Avengers by basically kicking out Hawkeye to make room for the Falcon. So always been the guy from the government that, is gonna,
right.
And he's usually pretty underhanded, generally.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he's putting a lot of pressure on Alpha Flight, but Doc Sasquatch isn't really having much of it, and he sort of bluffs Gyrich by using his claw to come close to, breaking out the window of the space station and sucking everybody into space. Anyway, Gyrich, he backs down. We switch over to a scene again with Jackie McGee going to her apartment. She finds McGowan there, and this is the beginning of sort of their relationship as both being on the same side and Jackie playing more of an active role with the team, Team Hulk, I guess you'd say. Gyrich again and the Alpha Flight are actually I guess I probably combine those last two scenes. But anyway, they're I'll stop here and let you guys comment while I scan ahead.
Okay. I don't have much to add. It's Doc Sasquatch, or how we want to refer to him, basically is bluffing Gyrich. However, that being said, him being Gamma, if he did decide to go through with it, he knows he's going to be able to be resurrected. Whereas most of the remaining people on that satellite will not have the same benefit that he does. So it's kind of like whenever he says he's bluffing, he wasn't necessarily bluffing. So
right.
He just knew that Gyrich wasn't going to actually pull the trigger on it because he likes his own life probably too much.
Exactly.
And the next scene's in the place below between Banner and the leader, and it's just more of the horror stuff, the body horror. I mean, it's just monsters and different versions of monsters. We move back to a scene with Guy Ritchie where he's introducing a team that he's recruited. I won't say introducing. He's introducing to us, the readers. And this is a team I hadn't heard of before, the UFOs. And let me see if I can remember their names. You had like X-Ray and Vapor and Vector and Ironclad.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I don't remember their names. You did better than I would have done.
Yeah, I'm looking at that last page, and I remember that was yeah, I remember that. Believe it or not, I actually remember their names. But anyway, I hadn't heard of. Well, maybe I've heard of the team before, but really must have been just in passing.
Did you read the Siege series from Marvel whenever it was out?
No.
Okay. So they were kind of instrumental in starting the Siege, which was like, so Asgard basically comes down to Earth. It's in Broxton, Texas, or Broxton, Oklahoma, excuse me. It's like hovering above Oklahoma. So Volstagg, the big guy of the Warriors 3, decides to go tour the country, and he ends up in Chicago of all places. And while he's there, the UFOs kind of provoke. They're basically in Soldier Field. And they basically provoke him into a fight. And just because he doesn't really understand his power level, they basically end up destroying like Soldier Field. And this kind of triggers the need to get the Asgardians out of, Broxton. So that's what starts the whole Siege storyline. So they were, of course, Hulk foes well before that as well. So they've been around for a while.
Yeah, I think they were introduced, if I remember what I looked up, they were introduced in early 80s. And, the names of the members, they are very reminiscent of like a team like the Outsiders. Just those, one word. It's not like the 90s names of heroes, but it's more like the early 80s, so.
They kind of remind me of Doom Patrol a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of they're just not even, mostly not human. I mean, I don't know if they ever get to revert back to their human forms, but I don't think I've ever seen that in any of these issues. No. Any thoughts, Shad?
No, I don't remember before this issue the kind of reveal of oh gosh, what's her name?
Jackie McGee's powers.
Of Jackie McGee's powers. Was this our first kind of view on that?
It's been like you've said, it's been a while since we've read them, but this may be the first time for sure that we see this, but it's definitely obvious at this point. So
the green eyes, and I really dig her vision, her perspective that we see throughout these next like 9 issues or whatever, where there's just the creatures, the fauna that they call at one point in time in the background of just the random gamma creatures that are just floating through everything. So I thought that was probably one of my highlights on this issue, was that.
And that becomes super important in the last issue. So
right,
yeah. And I like the idea that her powers are based on looking into things. She can see through things. She can see who's gamma, see who's the personality inside the body or whatever. But that goes along with her being a reporter too. She looks into things. And so I like that. That was a neat piece of writing.
At the beginning of issue 42, it's amazing how many in memoriams they have had in this run of Immortal Hulk.
Yeah.
So they had Mike Hobson, which I think he was just an editor. I don't remember of him being anything, creative wise. With the book. And then here in issue 43 that you're about ready to start, we get the memoriam for Richard Corbin, who has a long career in comics and movies. So
really,
yeah.
I mean, I know who Richard Corbin is. I remember him from Heavy Metal magazine more than anything. But what page is the memorial for him?
It's the very first thing. So Marvel remembers in issue 43.
Right, I'm looking at the Starlin, banner or Joe Fixit's walking.
Are you reading it from the trade or from the individual issue?
Just from the trade.
Okay, it must be in the individual issue.
Okay.
Yeah, because Walter Simonson does the quote.
Oh, I see.
Corbin Memorial. So.
Okay.
And then there's a few more as we get further in as well. So.
Well, shoot, I wish I would have got the individuals now, but well, in issue 43, once again, it's an Alex Ross cover with showing the UFOs, highlighting them, with a bigger reflection of the Hulk in Ironclad's sort of Colossus-style body. So the first scene in the comic is Joe Fixit walking down the street in New York City, walking past a shop that's called Starlin's. Then on each side you have Kirby King, a store called Kirby King, and on the other side it's called Lee. So I always like that kind of stuff. And there's other scenes like that throughout the book.
And it's a scene like this that got Joe Bennett in trouble.
It is, yeah. And I can't remember which issue it was, but
I don't remember which one it was either. So
it's not worth looking up, though. It's just, you know. But it's he's doing a little inner monologue. He's talking about how he's not Bruce Banner. Banner's gone. Leader took him to hell, and he killed the Devil Hulk. So he's sitting in this little diner, self-reflecting. One thing I noticed in this scene is he's walking out of the diner onto the street. He's got a 616 hat on, and that got me thinking, what is the significance of that number?
It's the area code for New York City.
Is it? I couldn't find that.
Yeah.
In my research, I found that it was
the Marvel
randomly...
universe is referred to as the 616. So instead of having Earth 1 like you would have in DC, you've got Earth 616 in Marvel.
Well, okay. Well, I remember you or someone telling me that, but I thought for sure I'd find that reference in my quick Google search. All I could find was it was first coined, well, either by Alan Moore or some other writer during the Excalibur days, but it didn't say anything about it being the New York City area code.
And then, go ahead.
No, I just said it makes more sense to be because so much of the Marvel universe is based in New York City.
And I'm gonna take that a step deeper with a hat, and they got the 1 inside of the blue shield. So for a while, Marvel had a comic called US1.
Ah, they did.
And that was pretty close to being the symbol for that comic. So
was that part of the new universe?
No, that was just. I think it was just kind of at the time. I think there was a lot of popularity with Evel Knievel, so I think they did something Evel Knievel-ish. You know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If I remember, it's not a book I ever read. So.
Well, Joe Fixit's showing the readers here how he survives when he doesn't have any money. He employs a few tricks that he's learned along the way about how to pick pockets, especially from guys that were as kind of not so nice, like the guy that's in this scene. And he bumps into him, steals his cash, and then so to keep it from being traced, he uses that cash to buy some bracelets at a jewelry store, and then he hawks them at a pawn shop. So then we move on to what do we got here?
The UFOs training.
Oh, it is. It's the UFOs training center, and they're sort of training on a mechanized Hulk, I guess. This is sort of where we, by way of exposition while they're training, we kind of learn what their powers are and how they work. And they're no slouches, but we'll find out soon how well they'll stand up against the Hulk and some of the others. Then we switch over back to Los Diablos, New Mexico, and where we find the Doc Sasquatch, Puck, and Shaman. Now, I don't know much about Shaman. I know he hasn't been in this series before, but what's his history or history?
Well, so he's an original member of Alpha Flight, which Puck was as well. So this is, if I remember correctly, he's a John Byrne creation. I think he was created for the Alpha Flight comic. And you notice that Puck is even back in his classic Puck costume as opposed to the Gamma Flight costume that he is. So he's basically, as the name suggests, he's an indigenous American. So he has kind of mystical powers, and he has a daughter that also takes on the mantle as well later on in Alpha Flight.
Okay. I really like him as a character. I mean, he's just plain spoken, and he gets the job done. He reminds me of Manitou Raven in Justice League Elite back in the early 2000s, but he was magical, but it was very grounded. So they're basically, I think at this point, they're looking for Walter's body, correct?
Or they're looking for Leonard's body.
Or Leonard's body,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
This is crazy. Yeah. Anyway, while they're doing it, they out of the ground comes the Rick Jones Del Fry monster, and I say monster in the most generous sense. It's really horrible, but it comes out of the ground, and they basically we switch over to back to New York where Joe Fix is walking again, and he thinks the cops are after him, but they actually are hollering out at one of the Teen Brigade. They were the what I don't know what issue that was, but I remember there was a couple issues with that the Hulk smash. Yeah,
it was pretty early.
Yeah,
and of course you got the Milgram on the building.
Yes, Al Milgram.
For Al Milgram. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, we're moving on here, and again the emaciated Hulk is Fix It turns into him, and he pretty much takes care of the police. So he can, even though he's not his full self, he can at least take care of those police that were kind of beating up on that kid that was one of the Hulk brigade. And the final scene is the confrontation of the UFOs and the Hulk after that fight. So, man, I can't believe I got through that at all. To full disclosure here for anybody listening, I was supposed to do a synopsis for 41, 42, and 43. All I did was general notes. So I had to wing it as best I could. And now if it was a DC comic, I could do it standing on my head. But so I apologize to anyone that's listening. And it sounded worse than the usual Mike Atchison stuff. So
if you wouldn't have said anything, nobody would have known.
Right. They'd be like, that's his usual stuff. That's 41, 42, and 43.
All right. Shad, you ready for 44?
Heck yeah. All right. So issue 44, the cover of it, we get the Commander Gyrich actually reading a copy of The Astounding UFOs assault on the Hulk. So you would assume that's probably what we're getting into, especially based on the last page of 43.
I'd wonder what the Orcus comics on the cover is. That's what's kind of weird. I've never
what's that a nod to?
Yeah, I don't know what that's. It's got to be referencing something. I just don't know what it's referencing. So
I didn't notice that first time around. Orcus,
because usually in Marvel universe, Marvel Comics exists. So it's kind of weird that they would do something different. So anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. All right, and so we open up with just a shot of Commander Gyrich on the Alpha Flight space station, just kind of reiterating that he is the person in charge and that he's going to see his mission through. And then we go right into the battle with the UFOs against Hulk. So they're taking turns with Hulk, since Hulk's kind of, he's weak as he is, so they just are like, well, we'll just take turns doing our thing. And so they do continue to just run him through the ringer one by one with all their different powers, so we really get an idea again of more of their power set. And then we go over to New Mexico, where we see all of our crew, our Doc Scott, Sasquatch, Puck, and Shaman interacting with the Rick Jones, Joe Fry Gamma Monster. But he's not doing anything. He's not attacking. He doesn't appear to be someone who's actually trying to get them, which is somewhat confusing, but they're trying to figure out what's going on, because actually even like Doc Sasquatch actually hits him, claws him or whatever, and still isn't really reactive to it, and very passive Gamma Monster. And then McGowan and Jackie McGee show up, and Jackie uses her Gamma Vision to see that the Gamma Monster is actually Rick and Joe Fry. Not Del Fry. Del Fry. Joe's his dad, right?
Well, I think you're just getting Joe and Joe Fix It.
Was it there?
Yeah.
Was it? What was Delphry's dad? Wasn't he
I
in
don't
here?
remember.
at one point
I'd
too?
have to go back and look.
It
He
rolled
ended
off
up
the tongue pretty easily.
didn't he end up being a villain though? He was buried alive.
Well,
Yeah.
because he was up in that hill,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah, that's right.
whenever anybody would come up and find him, they would die from the gamma
Mhm.
radiation. So and then of course his son, he tried to treat his son, and that's when his son got turned into
Exactly.
this monster here. But yeah, the Hulk ripped off his arms and legs and then just left him
Oh
in
yeah.
in
Ooh.
the cave. Yeah.
So we see the Rick Jones and Delphry are kind of one together inside this little monster. We also see with the gamma vision that we can see Doc Samson inside Sasquatch. I'm guessing it's a very less muscular version of Doc Samson.
Well, it's their versions without gamma.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
see. Okay, and then obviously we see all of the weird little creatures that are in the background as well. Um, so we know now, we know what's going on in the middle of that. So then we go back over to New Jersey, where the Hulk is now missing half his face and in a grave, a dugout grave, because that's where he got thrown into, I guess, by the UFOs. And and then X-Ray gets his turn, and it goes up against the Hulk and blasts him with cosmic rays, which are evidently anti-gamma. And this splits the Hulk up, makes him all looks like he's a snail that you just poured salt on, or a slug he just poured salt on, and then he burns up and dies. And then we see Joe Fix It and the big guy in their own individual spots in the below, and they are now face to face with a giant spider-like version of the leader.
That is one creepy leader.
Mm-hmm.
I just looked up Orcus, and that's a somewhat new creation. It's a group created by Dr. Killian Devo after he was brainwashed by a Mega Sentinel into believing he was from a timeline where mutants dominated humans and became Earth's primary species. Formed from the ranks of Shield, Strike, Sword, Armor, AIM, Alpha Flight, as well as Hammer and Hydra.
So thank
Orcus
you, MarvelFandom.com.
Yes. Yeah, this is and it just came out in House of X. Its first appearance was House of X #1 from 2019. So it's interesting that they picked that name for that comic.
Yeah, that's the one thing I found the exact same article that you're reading from. So.
Oh.
And then also at the beginning of that issue, we have another quote from Job, the book of Job. So just gonna throw that out.
That's right. Moving on to 45. We open with two women on the Staten Island ferry. One of them's drinking a St. Peter David lager, and the other is Betty Ross. She smells gamma and flies off, turning into the Red Harpy. In the below, the big guy and Joe they see a green door, but the leader talks about there being two sides to a door, and then the door actually turns red, and they aren't able to get through it. So then over in New Mexico, we learn that learn from the shaman while using Jackie McGee's gamma vision by he just puts his fingers in circles around her eyes, and then he can see it too.
Uses the Three Stooges glasses.
That's right. We know that the little creatures around are the phantasmagorical fauna, and they usually roam around high gamma usage areas. They're around there a lot. These fauna are explained to be ghosts, it seems like, and then we never mention them again at all that I could tell.
Yeah.
But I thought that was like a really cool concept that could become its own little thing, which kind of falls into my thought about the whole series, is like there's a lot of things that could have been explored and not stopped at 50. So not too far down the road, we see that Walter Sampson, which is Linkowski in Dr. Sampson's body, is hitching a ride. the Walter Sampson's I guess that's my version of I made it up. I don't think that's ever called that.
Yeah, and well, heck, he says Walter Sampson.
Yeah,
Is
he
how
does.
he introduces
Yeah, he
himself.
does. Okay.
And it's
I was
amazing
like,
how
I don't remember.
he got the chops, you know.
Yeah, mutton chops.
That's right. So then back in the below, we see Bruce Banner his partial body is actually in the belly of the spider leader. And Joe and the big guy are fighting off the creatures the leader has summoned. While in distress, Joe pulls the cosmic ray energy that put him in the below and now becomes the Red Hulk. And so now that he's in the Red Hulk form, he's able to fight off the creatures in the below and break through the red door and back into the body that the UFOs had killed. He's in the body of the big guy, but much larger, more filled out, and he has some red veins now.
Yeah, I don't guess I have anything else to add to that one.
Is that behavior of the way that he pulls that the cosmic ray energy, is that a wild thought? Is that a power that we've seen before with?
Oh, I think because through this entire series, they have kind of been tying Gamma that created the Hulk with cosmic rays that created the Fantastic Four. And there's been that constant thing going on, and that maybe that they're two sides of the same coin. So I'm taking this to basically the anti-gamma is the cosmic ray, and well, we now have basically a cosmic Hulk as opposed to a gamma Hulk. That's how I have been interpreting it. I don't know that is correct, but
I mean that makes sense with
interpreting it.
The leader's comment that there's two sides to the door, and the other side is the red door, meaning the cosmic ray door, versus the gamma door, I guess.
Well,
too.
I've always taken the two sides of the door. When the door is red, the door is closed, and when the door is green, the door is open. So again, that's been my interpretation. I'm not saying my interpretation has been right.
Yeah,
there's a lot that you can interpret in this. Series.
All right, then on 46, we've got Doc, Sasquatch, Puck, and all their friends are down in Shadow Site G now, where they get word that Commander Gyrich has announced that the UFOs, I about said UFOs, the UFOs have taken down the Hulk. And Rick Jones even says that Rick Jones says they have to save the Hulk. He's somehow that Gamma Monster's the voice of reason for the crew. So they vote and they decide that they're going to go save him. The newly resurrected Hulk is now fighting all of the UFOs, and I'm guessing that Commander Gyrich doesn't know that he's back alive. And then nobody's taking turns this time. They all hands on deck to fight the Hulk. But the Hulk is winning. He takes the vapors, gases that she blows in. He inhales them and blows them at Vector. And then squeezes Ironclad's head in, so he's all in. He's ready to go. And Vector responds by throwing the Hulk far away from the battle site, leaving him able to escape the fight. So the UFOs report their failure to Gyrich, and he decides to call in the Avengers. Hulk goes to the Weens in Manhattan and to get a drink. All these places are bars, it seems like, too, or coffee shops or bars.
Bookstores, just a little bit of everything.
Yeah, a little bit of, to get a drink when he is attacked by Thor and met by the rest of the Avengers when they work their way out of the bar. So then we see that the gamma rays that Red Harpy had smelled last issue were that of Hulk's, and she is there to fight with Hulk against the Avengers.
Do we know, because like in the bar, there's a Dale beer. Do we know who Dale is supposed to be? Is that also a reference to another creator?
I was trying to figure that out. Okay. I mean, it also has one that says light beer. I mean, just like Miller Lite, but I don't know what Dale beer is.
I guess it could just be a house, a house or a beer in New York or something like that. So
sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I just was curious if they knew.
I'll say one thing. They did the Red Hulk, the big guy, and the Fix-It combination. They did a number on the UFOs. And I got to say, I was pretty gratified to see him, even when when he was squeezing Ironclad's head to a pulp. It reminded me of the issues with that character, the bad guy that it was like a bull. And I bet 5 times in that arc, he was smashing just crushing the heads of some of his underlings.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was really happy to see him put those UFOs down.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So 47.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have something else, Mike?
I was just gonna say this is I guess the main Avengers fight's gonna be in 47. So I'll hold off. Yeah.
All right. So exactly. I'm not going to go page by page. I've just got like a few sentences all, and then we can kind of flip through and talk about what we want to talk about in the issue. So issue 47 gives us a continuation of that battle between the Hulk and the Avengers. At the start of the battle, it's basically Hulk and Red Harpy versus the Avengers. Then during the course of the fight, what is basically what ends up being the new Gamma Flight, because Al Ewing has a breakout 5-issue series during this. Of Gamma Flight, which has several of these members. They arrive on the scene to help kind of even out the odds just a little bit, but the fight ultimately ends whenever She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters, basically switches sides. She realizes there's a little bit more to what's going on, does one of the well-known Hulk claps, and that kind of knocks everybody off their feet and basically allows the Gamma crew to translocate out and escape. And then, of course, the issue ends with the beginning of a makeout scene between the Hulk and the Red Harpy. So again, that's kind of real fast going through that. But what do we want to talk about here in this issue?
I was just going to say that this was, I mean, it's a callback to that. I think it was issue 7 where they had the Hulk had his first fight with the Avengers. Probably wasn't as cool of a fight as issue 7's, but it was still good. It's always cool to see. I mean, it seems like it happens over and over again. That it's an endless cycle of trying to keep the Hulk in check, and he runs them over the coals.
I like that. It definitely is. Seems like the freaks, the outcasts, whatever, versus and it seems very cinematic in that, to the point where, like, I just like that when the Del Fry Rick Jones takes Cap's shield and is just chewing on it. It's just like it's a bunch of weirdos that are just like fighting these big Avengers, and
that was a good scene.
And then, of course, Rick Jones is a known quantity to most of the Marvel universe. I mean, he was Bucky for a while, but after he was the Hulk sidekick, and then he became Bucky for a little while before going on to Captain Marvel. And so he's done all of these various things inside the Marvel universe. So for, Steve Rogers to see Rick Jones in this situation, obviously is he's taken aback at that moment when he realizes what's happening here. So I think he even realized that there's more going on than just, the Hulk's on a rampage. There's more to it than that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to issue 48. So more tribute pages. So we have a couple of them here. John Paul Leon, who I recognize his art style. I couldn't tell you anything right off the top of my head, but he definitely died young. So what was he, like 49? So with the thing with the a little quote here from Joe Quesada. And then I'm not familiar with this creator at all. David Anthony Kraft.
Oh yes, matter of fact, he was one of the first fanzine guys. If you look him up, it has mostly to do. I want to say it's Comic Interview or Comic Journal, and he was he was also in comics, but I remember him from that kind of stuff more so than comics. Matter of fact, if you keep going, I'll do a quick search.
All right. So then in issue 48 begins with some history of some of the high and low moments in the Bruce Betty relationship. They're married, her dying, they're fighting, the relationship with the father. And then we have the continuation, and I guess we'll say it's the end of the makeout scene between the Hulk and the Red Harpy. So it's important to point out here that the Hulk is actually being controlled by the Joe Fixit personality. So that kind of gets into this weird little thing where Joe's feeling a little bit, I don't know, wrong about the fact that, Betty married Bruce, didn't marry Joe. So there's kind of this, and it really kind of seems countered. Like you figured Joe Fixit wouldn't care either way.
Right.
It'd be Betty that would be having the issues. But Betty, pretty much seems like she's okay with it. Betty and Joe Banner have their heart-to-heart talk about the nature of their relationship. Betty gets upset whenever she learns that Joe basically left Bruce in the down below. And what ultimately comes of their conversation is that Betty/Red Harpy leaves. And then at the end of the issue, we have them deciding that they are going to go get Bruce, is what they're going to do.
We get a spinoff. Red Harpy's going to be in the Outsiders. What is it?
Let's see. There was Gamma Flight, and was there a Defenders book that came out of this as
Defenders.
Well?
Yeah. That's where you can pick up with Red Harpy, is in the Defenders.
So real quick, David Anthony Kraft was the founder of Comics Interview, which ran from '83 until '95. It was one of the early, before Wizard and before. I mean, the '80s and '90s there were a whole lot of them. Comic Scene, comics, whatever. But he also did some fiction writing for Marvel, primarily, like the Defenders and some other stuff. Savage, She-Hulk. So anyway, just a quick interjection.
All right, and then 49. So in this issue is basically we're getting a narrative from Jackie McGee. So she's kind of taking on the role of reporter. We get a lot of basically full-page art or sometimes double-page spreads in this, with pretty much all of the text is kind of in the margin. We'll call it the margin. But again, we're starting with that story. The first page is the FF going into space on a rocket, not a bomb. And then we have, she talks about the creation of the Hulk, where it was a bomb and they're not going into space. But again, it's just Jackie, playing the role of the reporter, reporting on what's going on. So this is occurring while our group, and it's basically our group is now just down to Hulk, Jackie McGee, and She-Hulk, and they are making their way to the Fantastic Four headquarters. Of course, when they arrive, the Avengers are there waiting, and the Avengers have, of course, brought in some extra muscle because they weren't able to kind of take care of the situation the first time, so they added a few individuals to their roster here. During the course of the fight, the Fantastic Four and in particularly Sue Richards kind of steps in and basically brings it into it. And I guess one important thing that I've skipped as I was going through this is that as Jackie McGee's telling the story, she also, reminds us that, hey, Bruce's father killed his mother, and then on the anniversary of her death, Bruce killed his father. So kind of talking about the nature of that relationship. But then going back to where Sue Richards steps in and basically starts protecting the Hulk in this battle, and it kind of as just a side note here, it shows who is actually the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four, and in all likelihood, it is Sue Richards is the strongest one of the four in the Fantastic Four, because here she has a shield up that is basically stopping Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
So, and not just one or two. And this is not Thor, taking it easy, because he knows he can go full out on the Hulk and probably not even then, necessarily hurting. So, anyway, basically brings it into the fight. Ben basically takes Hulk's hand. And at this point, at the beginning of the issue, if you would have said, well, which Hulk was this? I would have assumed that it was Joe Fixit. But what we actually find out is that the Hulk that it's the Savage/Child Hulk, because, of how Ben is talking to the Hulk. It's like, it was Ben Grimm the Thing who looked the most human. What's the matter with y'all? He said, genuinely aggrieved. Did they hurt you, pal? So he's basically talking to the Hulk like he is a child. So we have that child version of the Hulk, not the Joe Fixit Hulk at this point.
Right.
So what they're going to do is there is something called the Forever Gate. I did not look up the Forever Gate, so I don't have any back history to provide on that. I
Well,
probably should have.
Is it the same gate, the same transport device that they used in that Wade Waringo run that we reviewed a year or so ago?
I don't know because
Where they went to heaven and yeah.
Right, and I don't know. I don't think so, but then again, I don't know.
Okay.
Because this one, it sounds like they can't necessarily go back to the same place twice.
Okay.
Well, so I'll and I don't know. Maybe as we're talking, I can look up this Forever Gate thing and maybe get a little history on it. Okay. But anyway, so the Forever Gate is going to be what is able to take the Hulk back down below, and whenever they kind of finally tune it to the Hulk's gamma, and as he's transporting through, Jackie McGee kind of grabs hold of the coattails and is actually pulled in to this with the Hulk, and of course they aren't able to follow because they don't have the right frequency to get there. So all right.
Well, Scott, I can tell you it's not the same gate as what we've seen in the Wade run. It came about in Fantastic Four Volume 6, number 25, which is October of 2020. And it's built by Valeria Richards.
Okay, so that's really recent then. So that's actually the Dan Slott run. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I assumed that back in the Wade run, they had the gate that they could use to go into like the negative zone and places like that. So I would assume that would have been used then. But all right, issue 50.
Big one.
That's a big one, right? It's 80-something pages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We didn't talk about how we were going to cover this. Does anybody? I've got a little write-up. Does anybody have a write-up that they want to go through?
I just had my general thoughts, but it's very general. I mean, this is where you really start getting the explanation of Jackie's powers.
Well, why don't we go through it and then we'll just go back and cover it, because I've got this one I had to read this 3 times and I'm still not sure that I understand it. So
if I only kept reading comics because I understood them, I would have quit a long time ago. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'm just going to enjoy what's going on and move on.
Right. All right. So issue 50, we actually start in 1901 in Ohio, of all places. We have a couple of brothers who are meeting on a wintry day, and they're basically talking about science. They're talking about this new type of ray, not alpha or beta ray, but gamma rays. And basically have one of the brothers is a scientist, and the other brother is a preacher. And as we kind of leave this scene initially, the gamma kind of puts a shadow on the two, and we basically see as a shadow, one of them is the leader, and one of them is the Hulk. All right. So then, go ahead.
That's a little bit of a foreshadowing of what we're going to learn, right?
A little bit of foreshadowing of what's happening in this issue. All right, so then we get reminded about Jackie McGee's childhood trauma, where basically her home was destroyed in one of the Hulk rampages. There's her father, so we got a little reminder that about her father, who her father was, basically trying to comfort her for what has been happening, and like what's the reason? It's like there's got to be a reason, but they don't know what that reason is. So then we make it down below, and here we have not one but 2 Hulks and Jackie McGee. All right, and the first time I read this, I see a red Hulk. My thought is, why is Thunderbolt Ross here? We haven't seen a red Hulk in this entire series, right?
Right.
I guess we briefly had that cosmic one in the down below. That was Joe Fixit, and I guess I'd forgotten about that. So I read a good portion of this issue thinking that Thunderbolt Ross had showed up, because I guess he's Gamma. This is how he was coming back as well, right? So he just happened to be there whenever he comes in. That's not the case. So this is Joe Fixit, which is our cosmic Hulk, I guess. And then we have our Savage Hulk, which is the Savage / Child Hulk here. So again, it's one of those things. Once I read it the second time, it's like, okay, that made a little bit more sense about what was going on. And then we kind of have this weird conversation going on. Basically, as they walk, the Child Hulk admits that misses the Devil Hulk. The Child Hulk is afraid. So again, it's that child, even though it's a Savage Hulk, it's also the child version of the Hulk. And then they arrive at their destination, which is that creepy spider building that of the leaders.
We jump back. Nap.
Yeah, we jump back to he's just thinking.
Let me throw a couple of things in about the art here. First of all, the scenes with the Stern brothers back in the early 1900s. That was like a breath of fresh air. Actually, seeing a normal scene after all of this crazy horror. It just was. I was like, oh, I love this. This is, and Joe Bennett's. I mean, he just does a heck of a job. And also his hellscapes in the next few pages, just the way hell is depicted as being a disaster zone of Earth. I really like that as well. And also how he can make the big guy Hulk look, you feel sorry for him. He's so sad because he misses Devil Hulk. So yeah. Anyway, just want to throw that in.
Oh yeah. So back in New York, the FF are trying to figure out how they're going to get to Banner, and I think they're more concerned about Jackie McGee than they are about Banner because she's a civilian. Well, Langowski or Walter Sampson, however he's referring to himself, is actually making his way to the FF headquarters. And then back to 1901, we have the brothers are continuing their discussion about gamma radiation. When Robert, who again is the preacher, confronts Samuel, who is the scientist, about the infidelity that he had with his wife and that the child that she is now carrying is probably his. So that leads to a little bit of a fisticuffs between the two brothers. Back in the below place, as the Hulk breaks into the structure, he's basically met with these various representations from his past, including his father. So Brian Banner's there. Jarrell is there. You can kind of see some of the characters in the background. Some of them I can name. Some of them I recognize and can't name. Some of them I don't have any idea who they are. But, like Green Scar's there in the background. And Ulik the Troll is there. So people that Hulk has fought or interacted with basically throughout the character's history are there on these, Escher-like stairs just kind of going, here and there. So, lost my spot here in my notes. Okay, so back to 1901. All right. Robert is, I don't feel like he ends up killing Samuel, but he does force the gamma tablet capsule, whatever it is, down his throat as he leaves and returns home. And then Langowski, our Walter Sampson, arrives back at FF headquarters. So that's moving a piece into place that we're going to need later on. So back in the below, the Hulk's already seen his past. So now Joe Fixit gets to confront some of his past. So we have basically the closest thing that Joe Fixit ever had to a father figure. I read part of that run with Joe Fixit, but I don't remember this character, Mike Berenghetti. But I would assume that he, was there through part of the Joe Fixit run. So they follow him, which leads them to the center where Stearns is at, who basically has not only Bruce Banner connected to himself, but also has the Hulk now connected to himself, and is basically kind of controlling the Savage/Child Hulk. So he actually attacks Joe. Here, and this is where Jackie McGee's powers kind of take this turn. She sees into the leader, but in doing so, the Sam Stearns portion of the leader actually leaves the leader's body. So McGee uses her gamma vision. Or actually, I'm jumping ahead a little bit in my notes. So there's this fight between the Savage Hulk and the Joe Fixit Hulk, and she's using her ability here, and you kind of see that child kind of in the fetal position inside of the Hulk, beating on the Joe Fixit Hulk. So again, it's just kind of a indication of her power. She is confronted by basically the shell of her father, who we were reintroduced to earlier in this issue. Now she uses her vision, actually sees into the leader, and in doing so causes the release of the Hulks. The Hulks basically grab hold of some of the stuff that was holding the Savage Hulk, and they pull Sam Stearns out of the leader, but he is now empty of gamma. Before we go into this last part, because I feel like we get very, very abstract in kind of like the the last part of this story. Does there anybody want to talk about anything up until this point?
No, it's a lot going on, and again, you just the different iterations of Hulk, and it's like I'm ready to get the payoff here. I'm really ready for it.
There's a lot to visually look at, and it does take definitely a few reads to even grasp everything and really be able to catch a lot of what's going on, to the point where like I didn't even realize that Devil Hulk is in one of these scenes, when we're underneath the leader right before all this kind of comes about, and I was like, oh shoot, that's right there.
Yeah, so like the Devil Hulk's the carcass, and it's attached to Banner, which is attached to the leader.
Yeah.
It's just, it's kind of crazy. So
yeah.
All right, so the Hulk, you would think this is a Hulk book, so how's the Hulk going to solve a problem? He's going to smash stuff. No, that's not what he does here. So basically, the Hulk, instead of smashing, basically asks the question, why? So you have this response from the one below all, and Joe Fix is like, wait, that's not an answer.
Right.
That's not what he asked. Give him a correct answer. So we actually end up having the one below all replace, and you get this dramatic change in the font style that is used for the character gets replaced with the one above all. So and then, well, I'm not going to jump ahead yet. So we jump back to 1901. All right, and we're back to Robert. He's back at his home. He kicks his wife out. All right, the wife is great with child at this point, but kicks her out because of her infidelity. And then Robert Stearns, I don't know if we actually were, told that he was a Stearns at this point, but I guess we should have been able to figure that out. Then tells his wife that she should go by her maiden name from now on, which is Banner, and then closes the door in her face. So back below, the Savage Hulk, again, you have this. Okay, so the answer from the one above all is basically that I created you, and I'll kind of do what I want, which is not much of an answer, right?
No, what I got out of it is that the one, these are representations of God and the devil, and the one above all and the one below all are like two arms of the same entity almost, and that he's giving the Hulk sort of the same choice to be either the breaker or the builder. That might be a real simple way of describing it, but it's almost like you can't build anew if you don't tear things down.
Right. Well, I'm going to give you some background that may change your interpretation of that here in just a minute. All right. So what we have now is that the Savage Hulk decides to show mercy, going back to what you were saying about, and it's one of the things that's asked. It's like, are you, mercy, or are you, I can't remember the other term that he used.
I don't even know what that word means. Chesed, Chesed.
I think that was used earlier in the series.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was that whole really weird spacey.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that was used at that point. So yeah. So basically, I guess it's, are you Gabura or Galakab, and what of Chesed, what of mercy? And it's kind of like, are you going to smash? Or are you going to show mercy? I guess is how you can almost interpret it. And the Hulk decides to show mercy on Sam Stearns, so he picks up Sam Stearns. Joe Fixit grabs Bruce Banner, and as they're walking out, we have this nice monologue between Joe Fixit and Jackie McGee that basically tells her that if she ever needs anything, then she can call on him anytime, any place. So as they're walking, they come across the Thing and Walter Sampson. And basically, Reed Richards was able to use Langowski's or Sampson's or whoever's signature here, Gamma's signature, to track them through the Forever Gate, because Bruce's signature is the same as the other, so they could actually track him down. And then, but what walks out on the other side of the gate is the Thing, Langowski, Stearns, Jackie McGee, and then we have a restored Bruce Banner, who is able to sneak away while everybody is focused in on other things.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the one above all, in my opinion, has a complicated history inside of Marvel Comics. So the first, as far as I know, reference to the one above all in comics is actually from Jack Kirby's run on the Eternals. So the Celestials were the servants of the one above all. And several issues into that series, I personally believe that the one above all was just supposed to represent God, and that the Celestials were supposed to be the angels of God. But at some point in the series, I don't know if there was just like fan feedback or whatever that says, oh, well, you need to see the one above all. But they actually introduced the one above all as another Celestial who was just more powerful than the rest of the Celestials. And again, this version was created by Jack Kirby. So this would be back in I think the Eternals came out in 70. What year was it? It was so I think it's 77. So it was after Kirby returns back to Marvel after having been at DC. So, but however, in Fantastic Four number 511, we have another version of the one above all. So I talk about both versions because I think it's relevant to talk about the first version before we get into the Mark Waid version of the one above all. And I think when we did that FF story, I can't remember if it was you, Mike, or if it was Dan that did the Waid this actual particular story.
I did.
Okay, so you did. Okay, so you should be familiar with the story. But in this, the Fantastic Four are adventuring, and they meet the Creator, who in this issue takes on the literal form of Jack Kirby sitting at his art bench. And then he also receives a phone call while he is there from his collaborator, which of course is a reference to Stan Lee. So in this sense, the one above all takes on one of two forms. He's either an all-powerful force like God, or he's the creator, with emphasis on little c creator, not big C creator, of the comics. So in my opinion, what we are dealing with here is that little lowercase c creator version of the one above all. And the one above all is basically Al Ewing. And so the Hulk is asking Al Ewing why, and Al Ewing is basically just saying, this is the story I want to tell. This is why the things happened to you that they did.
That's pretty meta, but I think I would agree with you. Having known the history of that Waid story, I tend, and to be honest, I think that's better anyway. I don't like when we get a little bit too close to the real uppercase G God and the uppercase D devil. I just stick with these these representations of creators and the adversaries and whatever, because they come in many forms. But I think that's a good explanation, and I think I'll hang my hat on that with you.
So we have basically this issue, especially like the last half, I think is just Al Ewing telling the story of Job in a slightly different context. So he obviously throughout the series he used quotes from Job. We had that in issue 41 where the Thing recounted the story of Job. So in that story, Job basically loses everything except for his life. Job's friends aren't able to comfort him, and basically Job is asking the question, why? Why is all of this happening to me? And in the book of Job, God answers Job and says, hey, did you create the universe? Do you understand my mind? Do you all these things? And Job doesn't have a response for that. So it kind of is you could take it one way as Job questions God, and God's response is, who are you to question God? Right. So to me, it's kind of in the same vein. The Hulk has been, for the most part, tormented through these 50 issues. Right. And whenever the Hulk wonders why, it's because, well, Al Ewing taking on the persona of the one above all. It's like, well, this is a story that I wanted to tell. So again, it's kind of that, telling of the story and then using Job as the backdrop or basis for that story. So
that makes sense.
I'm, that's the closest thing as I can get to an explanation of what happened in the story. What do you think, Shad?
I kind of went and not knowing a lot of the history of kind of the meta way that stories have been told in in the Marvel universe, and not knowing about, oh, that could be Al Ewing, that like that's an option. I'm kind of going. I went more from a reconciliation of the Hulk's past, and a lot of the issues with the below and all of that was his dealings with his father, and forgiveness to his father at a certain level of just coming to terms with his lineage, his family history, and definitely even his interaction with what we know about the leader now, about Sam Stearns, and how there's a potential lineage connection there to the Banners. And it seemed as though you could even spin it completely to where this entire conflict was of his own doing and in his own head, that he made it this big to reconcile his family history and dealing with the grief of his father and the tragedy and trauma that he's got from that. I was like, you could go that route, even just to the fact that when they first get into the below at the beginning of this issue, and they ask the question, do you think that the Devil Hulk knew all along that Joe was going to need to be exposed to the anti-gamma in order to get a Red Hulk so that they could get to this point? And it's like, well, if all of these are really just different personalities within Bruce Banner, is all of this his doing? If the Devil Hulk is potentially knew enough that we need to make sure that we release Joe Fixit so that he can be exposed to this, it got me thinking, is this all just is a grief? It's dealing with grief potentially even.
Yeah, and we have to remember, of course, so they talk about the dissociative identity throughout this entire series,
right?
And we never have two Hulks in the real world. It's only ever one. There's only the interaction between the Hulks whenever they're in his mindscape or whenever they're in the below place. Right, you don't have any of that interaction. So I don't know. That's just that was the best that I could do,
right?
From my perspective,
Same,
of reconciling this story in some shape, form, or fashion. So,
but Al Ewing really puts it best. His very last scene with Bruce Banner walking off into the distance in New York saying, "What do you think?"
Yeah.
So it literally, what we just did, we each kind of gave our own, interpretation of how this ended up and why, is really what he's leaving it open enough for us to have those interpretations, which that's pretty cool. I think that's a good way to do it. Doesn't have to be wrapped with a complete bow.
Well, I like the bows though.
I'm with Chad. I like to have a little bit more, something a little bit more concrete about what happened. And I, to me, because of how I interpret this, a lot of people like that FF 511 story where they go meet Kirby. That's not the type of story that I want comic books. That's just a little bit too breaking the fourth wall, type of a situation. And that happened a lot. Like, I don't know if you read Commandi Challenge, whenever they just did that 12 issues, that last issue. That series it wasn't great, and it really, really fell apart there at the end with the whole bringing Kirby into the story. That's just not, we can recognize.
Well, I don't know that's
not as a part of the story,
I think I'm more talking about, I'm okay with the ending because Bruce Banner's okay. He's walking away. It's sort of a happy ending. Whereas, what I would compare a similar situation where it was not wrapped up with a bow was the Mr. Miracle series by Tom King. And you were left wondering, well, what the heck really happened?
And of course, the thing about that series is we don't know if that's quote unquote continuity.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas one really is supposed to be continuity, right? Because this leads into the next Hulk series. So you can leave it a little bit more ambiguous, whatever it's not for sure tied with the continuity. So but I don't know. I don't know. Final thoughts on Immortal Hulk 9 and 10.
It's just not just 9 and 10, but the whole series was one of the better series I've read. I liked that it was a finite story, which I think you see more and more of those these days. Writers come in with an overarching story, and whatever number of issues it takes to tell it, they tell it if the publisher lets them. And I think Al Ewing did one heck of a good job with it.
Do you want to grade these last couple of volumes?
Yeah,
sure.
I'm gonna drop this down. Okay, so I'm gonna drop down to very fine here at the end. I don't think they stuck the landing. So, and
I
the fact
agree.
that I had to read that last issue so many times to even begin to understand what's going on, I don't know. It just wasn't quite there for me. So,
Yeah, the volume 9, I would definitely call it a very fine plus. I enjoyed it. I thought that it moved the story along those 5 issues. There were some new tricks in there that we got to see. Just it was a good grouping of 5 issues. But that last five, I actually brought my rating up after that second read, but I'd still right around that fine, very fine 7.0 kind of area. Because it started to, I have my notes are, it started to land too many planes all at once, and though they didn't crash into each other, there was a lot of turbulence along the way.
That's a good way of putting
It
it.
was just
yeah.
it was just they were trying. I don't know what the obsession with ending on issue 50 was, but I felt like the story suffered because of that.
Well, and the last issue's the equivalent of what, 4 issues, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So it really was 53 issues. They just
Yeah.
crammed the last, 4 into a single issue. So
It reminds me of Fables, where they had basically a trade's worth.
Mhm.
That was their final issue.
But I think that was more deliberate, I think,
Mm.
than what this was. So
Yeah, man.
You got-
I
on the spot for grading, Mike.
well, I think I said last time we graded something that fine or better is something I'll read again, and this is something I'll read again. I think it's unusual in that this whole run has had more story in this age of decompressed storytelling. It's had more story than what can always be absorbed. And I mean, that's, I think, a testament to Al Ewing's ability to write. Not always. It's kind of like Morrison. Sometimes he overwrites and shoots over the heads of many readers. And I'm still going to give it a very fine plus for both 9 and 10 together. I enjoyed parts of it really well. I think Shad's Shad's description of the ending, landing too many planes or a lot of planes at one time, is very apt. But I'm pretty happy with the ending. Bruce Banner's. I think you do have to remember that a lot of this is going on inside his head, like you said, Scott, and you kind of forget that because this is a visual medium and you just see pictures and word balloons, and you don't always realize that it is stuff, when you have more than one personality interacting with one another. But overall, I mean, this is just, it deserves all of the accolades that it's gotten, and I don't want to diminish that at all by giving it anything less than a very fine plus.
All right, let's move on, shall we? Spider-Man: No Way Home. So of course that was out in December, and here it is, February 21st. We're just now getting around to talking about it. And of course,
Talk about it for when it comes to home video.
Yeah. So yeah, Sad, you said it's going to be out real soon, and then of course it'll be on
March
Stars
1st.
of all places. Whenever it's released out into the I don't know, general public, I guess. Of course, it's still in theaters right now because it's the third biggest domestic release in history.
Really?
Yeah, or domestic, and then I don't know, but it's over $1.5 billion, I think, globally.
1.8 billion globally, wow. Sixth highest. So domestic, it's 760.
Okay, so which should be number 3, right? Because it passed Avatar, I think.
I think so. Yeah, it just recently passed Avatar.
Yeah. So, do we just want to give our thoughts about it? Do we want to go over synopsis? I got the IMDb synopsis that I could read real quick, and then we could talk about that each section. I could just stop after a paragraph, and we can kind of talk about it.
Good.
Okay, all right.
Like
so this is again taken from IMDb, giving credit where credit is due. So 1 week after Quentin Beck's attacks in Europe and subsequent framing of Spider-Man for his murder, Spider-Man's civilian identity as Peter Parker is revealed to the world. Parker and MJ flee to his apartment, reuniting with his Aunt May and Happy Hogan. With the apartment surrounded by the Department of Damage Control, Parker, MJ, Aunt May, and Ned Leeds are interrogated but ultimately released without charge, with Peter's name being eventually cleared with the help of Matt Murdock. Parker, MJ, and Leeds return to high school, but their university applications are rejected due to the recent controversy. So the 100% best scene in the entire movie occurred in this first part, where we had the Matt Murdock talking to Peter Parker scene. And of course, everybody was excited to see Charlie Cox return as Matt Murdock. Even if we don't see him as Daredevil, we at least saw him as Matt Murdock. So, all right. So, your initial opening thoughts on this?
Chad, would you like to go?
Sure. Yeah, I like this core cast. I mean, they can do no wrong. They've done no wrong for 2 movies, in my opinion. So I'm all good with what's happening with this movie up to here. We've got I like the like introduction of Charlie Cox, obviously, into the regular MCU, and brings a lot of questions as to where all is Daredevil going to show up, and probably not his own show or own movie, I don't think, but definitely going to see that influence throughout as probably the She-Hulk show, and we're gonna see that character more and more, and that's exciting. But I up to here, I'm feeling good about everything and the layout, because it all makes sense, and it's what you would expect to see after what we saw from Far From Home.
And this may be moving ahead just a little bit, but we get so little in this movie of Peter actually dealing with the impact of having his identity revealed to the entire world. It's like, oh, great, their applications got rejected. Oh, let's go to Doctor Strange. I mean, you could have had multiple movies where he's known as Spider-Man and just dealing with the ramifications of that. And instead they kind of, let's just undo everything from the last movie as quickly as we can. So we just jump straight into, oh, let's go talk to Doctor Strange.
It feels like, when Rian Johnson taking over in Last Jedi, it's like, let's just undo everything from.
Yeah. We were kidding. We didn't mean it. So Mike, you want to add anything at this point?
Well, I mean, my overall thoughts are that, to me, this is one of those movies that's, you'd have to be the Grinch not to love it.
I'm the Grinch then.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Well, I didn't mean to. I don't know. Everybody's got their perspectives, but okay, this combined things that I like into one movie. It's multiversal, and they didn't really screw it up. It's nostalgic, and it's nostalgic in the sense for a Marvel movie that works for me, because nostalgia for Marvel characters has to be with the movie universe, the MCU, or the going back to the X-Men, or the first Spider-Man movies, the Sam Raimi movies, because I'm not steeped in that historical Marvel comic knowledge. It's also a redemptive type movie. It gives opportunity for redemption for Andrew Garfield. It gives redemption for some of the villains. And it's really, to me, it's like the first real, it's like a coming of age for Tom Holland Spider-Man. He's not like a sidekick of Iron Man, or, just it's all part of the Avengers and leaning on them. He does kind of like, he's definitely brings in Doctor Strange, but that's more just to be a launcher for the Doctor Strange. What is that? Multiverse of Madness or whatever movie.
Or Mom, as we'd like to call it.
Mom, yeah. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts, and that's I think.
All right, so next part of the movie, Parker consults with Stephen Strange in the Sanctum Sanctorum, asking him to cast a spell to make people forget he is Spider-Man. Despite Wong's warning of the consequences that could be incurred, I'll mention here that at this point, Wong is the Sorcerer Supreme. Strange casts a spell anyway. However, the spell is damaged when Peter's constantly changing requirements destabilize it. Strange then berates Peter after finding out Peter didn't even try to contact the MIT acceptance board before coming to him to request a potentially universe-ending spell. Parker goes through the Alexander Hamilton Bridge and tries to convince an MIT administrator to accept Lee's and MJ's applications. Suddenly, the bridge is attacked by Otto Octavius, who rips Parker's nanotechnology from his iron spider suit, causing it to bond with his mechanical tentacles. Upon discovering that it isn't the Peter Parker he had previously fought, Octavius has his robotic arms disabled by the nanotechnology before being captured and placed in a holding cell in the Sanctum Sanctorum, along with Kirk Connors, who has been captured by Strange. Strange reveals that his spell has begun bringing everybody from every part of the multiverse who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man into their world. With the help of MJ and Leeds, Parker decides to help capture any other possible visitors. They find and capture Max Dillon and Flint Marko, who are Electro and Sandman, respectively. All right, the whole spellcasting scene was just silly. It was so absurd. It's like I just interrupting, and it's like as if Stephen Strange, if he thinks this is a universe, knows it's a universe ending spell potentially, that he doesn't make sure that it's all prepared and thought, oh, it's just on a whim, let's just go cast this spell. That's it. The whole scene was just absurd. It was just, I just couldn't get past it. Tell me why I'm wrong. You're muted, Mike. So I can't. So obviously I'm right.
I didn't really say a full word. I just said, well, I don't know. I get it. It's not really realistic that Doctor Strange is going to do such a hefty spell without a little preparation and a little bit of gravity to it. But you know how it is. There are things in movies that you have to do to make them work. There's story devices and things in this movie that you really scratch your head at, but they couldn't have had the movie probably without doing them. So
I think they could have come up with other ways to get a similar result for sure. Mm-hmm. So, and not make Stephen Strange just so, his attitude so
flippant.
Flippant. That's a better word. Yeah.
You're right. You're right about that. But it did not detract for me. These are the movies, and I mean. But you and I have had this discussion before. You will pick apart a Marvel movie, and I will pick apart a DC movie.
I'll pick apart a Marvel movie or a DC movie, either way. Obviously, I picked apart Aquaman.
I've heard you pick apart some DC movies.
Yeah.
But I mean, well, okay, let's be more specific then. I will pick apart a DC movie that is not true to the way it was represented in the comics, whereas non-DC people that have not read as much DC as I have won't be fazed by it. They won't be.
He won't notice it.
They aren't. I mean, like, okay, well, I don't even want to get off on it, but Wonder Woman did not need to cut off Steppenwolf's head and throw it into the portal to Darkseid's feet. That's not what Wonder Woman does. That's gratuitous, and it's just not it. So that's where I get on my high horse.
I just want to remember that statement when we talk about Peacemaker.
But that's meant to be. But it's meant to be. It's meant to be. Okay. Back to our review.
Chad, what do you want to add on this?
Well, I just wanted to say, like, I don't like Doctor Strange or Benedict Cumberbatch, so I'm like, cool. This is just another reason to not like this character, because he's playing fast and loose with his magic, and that's not a good idea. I know we haven't gotten to this part either, but like. Ned all of a sudden being able to use Doctor Strange's magic without even reading a handbook on it is a little wild.
That's true
too. But they play a little bit wild with the magic, and I don't know if we would have seen that kind of behavior in a Doctor Strange movie. I think has a little bit to do with the people in charge of the character in this movie specifically. We get a different version of Doctor Strange than we have in previous movies and things like that.
Yeah, if this is the Doctor Strange we get in Multiverse of Madness, it has me really, really concerned. So, all right, next part. All right, so elsewhere, Norman Osborn is retreated after going to a feast building, FEAST, I don't remember what that acronym's for, seeking help. Strange wants to send the villains back to their respective universes and meet their fates. However, Parker wants to cure and help them before sending them back in order to prevent their fated deaths. He frees them and confines Strange in the mirror dimension after a brief fight, taking the villains to Happy's apartment. Parker successfully cures Octavius by using Stark Industries technology to replace his broken inhibitor chip. When the cures are developed for Osborn and Dillon, the Green Goblin persona takes over Osborn before the cure can be administered. Goblin then manipulates Dylan into removing the device that Parker put on him to cure him, and despite the best efforts of Parker and Octavius, the other four escape. In the ensuing battle, May is critically injured by the Goblin, with Parker unable to save her as she succumbs to her wounds. MJ and Leeds accidentally learn how to open portals using Strange's sling ring, which they use in an attempt to find Parker, but instead summon an alternate Peter Parker from a different universe. A second attempt brings them another alternative. All right, so Peter decides it would be a great idea to take not one, not two, but three supervillains, one of whom is obviously unbalanced, out because they promise to be good. Right?
It's a child mentality, though. Like you definitely get like a guy. I mean, he has been Spider-Man, I guess, for 3 years at this point, 4 years at this point, so he should know better. But that is definitely like a child mentality to like. Oh, they said they'd be good though.
They promised exactly. And especially he had seen the unbalanced Norman Osborn whenever he went to the homeless shelter, so he is aware that guy's not, his marbles aren't all there.
That's probably my favorite. Norman Osborn is probably one of my favorites in this movie. I think he did I think that it's I didn't realize I wanted more of that character, and I feel like they played a lot more with the unbalance of it because I feel like you got to see more of the struggling, that's the down part of it, and I really liked that.
And that's Defoe as an actor. I mean, he's on a somewhat short list of just actors that are able to transform mid-scene. He can show that personality change,
except in an Aquaman movie.
Well, he didn't transform personalities. But anyway, he did steal the show, I think, as Norman Osborn. He's scary, and I just read that Tobey Maguire now is as old as what Willem Dafoe was in the first Spider-Man movie.
Oh.
All right, so we ready for the next couple of parts here? All right, so Lees and MJ finding their Parker, who is comforted by MJ after learning of May's death. He then meets the other Spider-Men who share their own stories of losing loved ones and encourage him to fight in May's honor. They cooperate on curing the remaining villains and lure them to the Statue of Liberty. Leeds and MJ protect the original bind spell by Strange as the Spider-Men battle their enemies together. As the three Spider-Men struggle, they decide to plan a coordinated attack on the villains. They are later joined by Octavius, and they manage to defeat and cure Connors, Dylan, and Marco after a lengthy battle, with Dylan reconciling with his universe's Spider-Man and is encouraged to abandon his villainous tendencies. So that's just kind of like the big fight scene.
I don't love their terminology for like they're gonna cure the villains. Like they have the reason that they're angry is because they've got a broken tooth or something like it's not. I mean, for some of them, like for Octavius, absolutely, he had like some issue with his wiring, but like some of the other ones, like Sandman's he's just bad. He's just a bad guy.
The Sandman, he wasn't that bad of a guy in that original movie. He was just a criminal. He accidentally killed Uncle Ben. I mean, seriously. Yeah. And then he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was trying to turn him into Sandman, and then he had an opportunity to get money for his kid. So it's kind of like that, down on your luck.
Sympathetic villain, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, right. Exactly. But, and then, Norman Osborn became crazy from the serum. Octavius became, crazy from the chips. Lizard became crazy from the regeneration forum. And who am I leaving out? Is that all of them?
Electro.
I don't remember what caused Electro. That was just such a bad character.
Well, he was. This is one of those things where I think he's better depicted in the movies than he was in the comics.
Well, not in the original movie for sure, because in the original, when he first appeared, he was the nerdy technician who got the electrical powers, as opposed to what we got here, which all of a sudden he's super buff and the cool guy. So
okay, I did like in one of those scenes you've seen, he doesn't have the comic version of the mask, the little.
The green and yellow with the yellow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but there was an outline of like an aura that looked like that if you watched. I mean, I've got. I'll save all my comics towards the end. I mean, I'm not really scene by scene. I have my favorite scenes, and I have some other thoughts. But
okay, well then let me just run through the rest of this here real fast, and then we can just
okay,
kind of talk free form on the rest
okay,
of it. We just got the last scene and then the credit scene. So
all right.
all right, so Leeds accidentally frees Strange from the mirror dimension, who seizes control of the spell and works to protect the current universe as the barriers begin to break down between the other universes. Meanwhile, an enraged Peter Parker and fights and overpowers the Goblin, including intending to kill him in vengeance for May's death, but he is stopped short by the Parker from the Goblin's universe, only for the latter to be stabbed from behind by the Goblin. Parker then injects Goblin with the cure, restoring him to a regretful Osborn. Peter and MJ confess their love for each other and share a passionate kiss before the spell officially starts. To prevent further catastrophe, and at Parker's request, Strange fixes the spell, sending the alternate Spider-Man and their villains back to their respective universes, while making everyone forget Parker's existence. Later, Parker tries to reintroduce himself to MJ and Leeds, but finds himself unable to do it. Parker visits May's grave, joined by Happy, now oblivious to his identity, and vows to carry on. Parker creates a new suit from scratch to resume his independent heroics. And then that's the end of the movie. Then we get the mid-credit scene. The universe displaced Eddie Brock and his symbiote companion Venom sit at a bar and talk with the bartender about other superhumans and the blip. While pondering how to protect this new world, the duo is swiftly transported back to their universe by Strange's spell, unknowingly leaving a part of the symbiote on the counter. All right, so here's my big complaint. Way too much Tobey Maguire, way too much Andrew Garfield, way too much villains from the other movies. They should have been on screen a few seconds, maybe one brief fight, and then be done with those characters. Everybody who was so excited about the appearance of these characters is just doing it because they blocked out Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 from their minds, and they've forgotten how really, really bad those movies were and how we were done with these characters and these villains. People endlessly mocked the Lizard from the Amazing Spider-Man. He looked like a Goomba from Mario Brothers, and it was just they just weren't well done. So all this nostalgia for these characters is almost completely invented because they just weren't great. None of the original Spider-Man movies were outstanding, and that's all five. That's the Maguires and the Garfields. Some of them were okay, but none of them were the caliber of the two previous Tom Holland Spider-Man films. So to want more of something that is not as good as what you got now, it just makes zero sense to me. All right, Mike, go ahead.
It hurts my heart to hear you say those things. I can't find the only Marvel movie I ever did a standing solo applause slow clap was Spider-Man, the first one, Tobey Maguire. Now maybe that's just because it was the first. I mean, that was after X-Men, but it was, and in my mind that has resonated for me. I agree that the Andrew Garfield movies were forgettable, but I think as an actor, he's probably a better actor than the other two easily. I'm not as critical. I don't think for me it's fake nostalgia. I think maybe it's wishful thinking that, I'm trying, because I couldn't tell you much about the Lizard or the I don't know who the heck there was any other
Electro, and it was like an Amazing Spider-Man was Lizard and was it Electro?
Rhino.
No, Rhino only shows up at the very end of the second Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay.
Because they were basically, the idea is they were setting up for the Sinister Six, and then that just ended.
Canceled. Yeah. So
bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess Electro was in the second one.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Spider-Man movies, you had Green Goblin in the first one, you had Doc Ock in the second one, and you had Sandman, Venom.
I mean, there was
Goblin in the third one. So
yeah, they suffered from some of that. Too many, like the Green Lantern movie, too many things going on at one time, too many villains and all that. But I don't. It does not at all there's nothing you can say that will sway that maybe it is nostalgic. Maybe it's, I don't feel like the portions of their appearances are that there's too much of it. What I think I don't like is that this is a Marvel timeline thing instead of alternate Earths. And it because you've got, the way they're depicting like Doc Ock, he comes in from the other Earth when he's younger, right before he dies.
Right.
But then Tobey Maguire comes in 20 years later and he looks aged. So it doesn't really make sense. So you get all this complications of timelines and maybe I shouldn't overthink.
Well, okay, so that can be explained by how they got there, because Tobey Maguire got there because he was pulled in not by the spell, but by Ned Leeds. And the same way with Andrew Garfield. They weren't pulled in as part of the Strange spell that pulled in all the people who knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. So that
they're
part
not
explained. So
they're not on our MCU Earth when they use the little circle thingy to see them. They're in their own universe at that time.
I think so. Yes. Yeah. That's how
clears some things up for me if that's the way you interpret it. Because I
remember Ned Leeds was casting the spell and he's like, "Show me Peter Parker." Well, he didn't. It didn't say which Peter Parker. So that's how he got in, was from the Ned casting the spell, not from Strange's spell. And maybe like the Strange spell broke down the walls between the universe to allow that to occur, but it would have still been at that time. So,
because I was wondering, if the villains come through it right before they die, then is this right before the time that those Peter Parkers die? But it doesn't. Doesn't work necessarily. My big question though about the timeline is, okay, we've cured these villains, but they came over right before they were getting ready to die. Are they still getting marched to their death? Like, does Green Goblin still have his glider just on its way into his stomach?
So this was fan service. This movie was complete fan service, and I think for most people it did work. It wasn't a poorly done fan service. Now, for some people like you, Scott, it didn't work as well. So, but in the end, that's what this is. This brought back some fan favorites. Heck,
if you want, I mean, to me, if you the movie that is the best, like pull in all the variations of Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, is far and away a superior movie to this. And you've got Spider-Man 2099.
But it's animated.
But I don't care. It was so much. The story was so much better. And you pull in Spider-Gwen and Spider. I thought I was going to despise the Spectacular Spider-Ham whenever I went to that movie, and it ended up being okay. It's just like that. I absolutely would rather watch Into the Spider-Verse than watch No Way Home again. It's just so much better than what this movie is. And if you want multiverse, that's a much better representation than multiverse.
This does make me a little concerned about how they're going to handle Multiverse of Madness. If this is the level of writing that we're going to get to explain certain things, it's okay for one movie and to go, that's the way we want to do that with the Spider-Mans. But if they're really going to pull in Professor Xavier and, if they're going to go that far, we really need a better approach to it in the long run for this multiverse kind of approach.
And I hope that we obviously know they're doing multiverse because it's in the title of the Doctor Strange movie, but I hope when that movie's over, the multiverse is closed. It is down back to one universe.
I think they should have a Crisis on Infinite Earths to boil them all down to one.
Yeah, because that ended up working so well for DC in the long run. It took them 2 months to undo a lot what Crisis had done. So,
I don't agree I think it's one of the best stories ever told, but I don't agree with the reason that they did it.
Yeah. So anyway, I've already railed on this movie enough. So it was such a huge disappointment for me.
Okay, so I'm going to give some of my favorite scenes then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The Doc Ock scene on the bridge, hello Peter. I thought that was cool. I even liked the conversation he was having with that MIT board member in the car right before he attacked.
And that should have been all of the Doc Ock that we saw. We should have that bridge scene, and then he somehow goes back to his own universe, and we don't see him again.
Sure,
he wasn't the main villain.
I won't disagree that could have that may have had a better outcome than having all of them in their little cages. It did seem kind of weird there. I'll repeat what you said about the appearance of Matt Murdock. I mean, he explained his reflexes by saying, "I'm a really good attorney." That was priceless.
Yep.
So I forget the context, and I tried to find the clip online, but it was when Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was on the roof or hanging from the ceiling of Ned's mother, and she asked while he was up there
hanging from the roof of Ned's mother.
From the ceiling of Ned's mother's
apartment,
house, or whatever.
Yes.
And asked her to clean the cobwebs. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It sounded right in my head, so apparently
you just left off a word.
Yeah. Okay. Again, the turning of Norman Osborn to Green Goblin, Defoe's,
and that was something they actually fixed in this movie, because in the first Spider-Man movie, he was wearing a mask. Willem Dafoe did not get to do any facial expressions to represent crazy.
Hey.
Right.
And literally that's the reason why they busted the mask in this movie, was to let Dafoe actually act without the mask in the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield saving MJ. I know this has been talked about on the internet. I mean, everybody's talking about how that was great because that gives him, it kind of redeems himself in his mind for being a failure or failing to save Gwen. The Emma Stone Gwen. And when you watch that scene, you can see she's like, "Are you okay?" I mean, he's holding her. She's the one that almost died, but she's looking up at him like, "Are you okay?" And he's like trying to keep from crying because he was remembering all of that. So, there was a kind of a cool thing that Jamie Foxx said about as Electro. He's after there towards the end, and he's been depowered, and he kind of wistfully says out loud that he really thought that Tom Holland Spider-Man being from the Bronx would have been black. So so those were those are all good scenes, I thought. But one I just can't figure out. Maybe I just missed something. But why was the Statue of Liberty, when it was being renovated, holding Cap's shield?
I think that was because of the timing for this. So Cap is now deceased. So it was like an homage to Captain America.
Wow. That's a big homage. Replacing the torch with his shield.
Okay. Inside of... Well, no, I thought the shield was low when the torch was still high. Or was it...
It's replacing the book, I guess, maybe.
I don't... I'll have to look at a picture. But okay. To be honest, though, if Captain America existed, who would be a better symbol for the United States? Captain America or the Statue of Liberty? I'm just going to tell you, Captain America would trump the Statue of Liberty. Okay. So yeah, this would not be any type of desecration on the Statue of Liberty.
I knew I'd hit a nerve with the whole shield with him, Scott being a Cap guy. No, I just wondered. I just thought, wow, that's really, really taking it to. They're putting him up on a big pedestal, which that's fine because he did ultimately save the universe. But that explains it.
I'm looking to see if I can find a picture from the movie, but keep going with your thoughts while I'm looking here. So
I covered all of mine, except for, I'd love to see
the shield is up. The shield is up. So it's not, it did replace the torch. You are correct.
Oh.
I mean, in real world context, yeah, I don't know that I'd be in favor, but this is not real world, so I wouldn't be, that's okay. Just my last comment before I turn over to Shad, but I'd love to see some cameos of like Sally Field as Aunt May or Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy or whatever. Kirsten Dunst
with her neck broken and
well, I mean, like before. I mean, if a lot of these people were died, but they were brought in before they died. So, if we're gonna go as far in as we did, why not go a little farther just as cameos? So that's it.
I would have accepted more brief cameos as opposed to the few lengthy cameos that we got.
And that's where I think the CW Crisis crossover did pretty well. It didn't have big in depth. It had a lot of cameos that were little nuggets and Easter eggs, and I mean it was TV type stuff, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean we just didn't get. I mean we didn't really move Tom Holland's Spider-Man along very much in this movie. So I just felt like we missed opportunity.
Yep.
All right, Shad, give it to us.
I think one of my big things was this was the first of the MCU Spider-Man movies where you really had to do a lot of homework. It was an Avengers level homework for a Spider-Man movie, and I've really enjoyed. And what I mean by that is you really had to know to pick up on all the little things that happen in this movie. You had to know the other 7 movies, and even in the Far From Home, you didn't really need to know much about Homecoming. They give you like a 5-second thing at the beginning, and this one was like, oh man, I gotta remember a lot of stuff to kind of pick up. And
why is that guy in here as Spider-Man? It's
I didn't enjoy that as much because I like the fact the Spider-Mans kind of have become their own little standalone. They interact with everything, but you can kind of just pick it up and it's light and it just kind of it's fluffy, Scott. It's fluffy. But this was a little bit different. One of the things I really like our Aunt May, our Marissa Tomei in these movies, and the fact that I get that somebody had to die, and the fact that the way that we end this movie, it makes sense that Aunt May's not around because Peter can probably make the decision he makes to let everybody forget a lot easier if he doesn't have Aunt May in the picture anymore. It's a lot easier to pull that trigger, but it sucks because I really dug that Aunt May. But I did like where Peter Parker ended. For as much as like you just said, Scott, we don't get a lot of motion forward. We do get a whole new Peter Parker to start with, who has lost everything. He's living in an apartment, barely making rent, and he has to go find it. It's the Peter Parker that I kind of feel like I remember as a kid, of just like down on his luck, nothing's going right for him, and he's on his own as an adult, kind of a thing.
Because we've not had that version of Peter Parker in the MCU, other than a brief clip in Civil War where he's in the pajama costume. Then he's immediately costumed from Tony Stark and everything. He has everything he needs. So now we get we're going to have the down on your luck Parker.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. And the couple other things I just had. So I'm assuming we're going to get a Venom in our MCU at some point. And I'm sure it's gonna be Flash Thompson. I'm sure Flash is gonna get that, which that version of Flash will be interesting to have the symbiote. I don't know if it's gonna be good or not, but it'll be worth seeing for a brief moment, maybe.
I'm gonna have a hard time if that happens. I'm gonna have a hard time buying him as the villain. It's just I'm just not gonna see that. So
an anti, just a whatever you call it,
anti-hero.
Even just an anti. Like, I just don't see Flash as anything but the way he's portrayed in there. Like, he doesn't have a lot of. There's not much growth that's going to be believable for that guy.
Yeah, he's not the Flash Thompson from the Spider-Man comic books who went to war and lost his legs, and that's not what you were going to expect out of that version of Flash Thompson. So.
No, and then there were good parts in it. I also enjoyed the bridge scene a lot. I enjoyed the where his the micro whatever's take over the arms of Doc Ock.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool. A really cool. Yeah, so that whole thing, but you do wonder, like, what happens if Peter Parker just starts talking to the MIT person, and that seems like a very Peter Parker-y thing. Is like, well, the person's on the bridge, I'll just go talk to him, and just swing by, and that all seems perfect. And like, what does that story look like if we don't get the multiverse, interaction, and we just see him trying to deal with the fact that everybody knows who he is, and he doesn't involve magic and Doctor Strange, and we get one new villain maybe to it, or into the mix of it all, and we still end the same way. We still end with him making the decision to get away from his friends so that they can live a normal life, but you forget all of the multiverse stuff, and you see there's a totally different movie in the guts of that would be interesting to see.
One thing that could happen is, like, Okay, he goes to Doctor Strange, just like it does in the movie. Hey, I don't want to make everybody forget. Doctor Strange says, okay, it takes me an hour and a half to prepare this spell. Come back in an hour and a half. And then he goes, and we have the movie, right? And then when all is said and done, okay, now we undo it.
Now we're ready.
Yeah. And I'm prepared this time.
And I think the only real thing I have is like I was kind of prepared for this multiverse world when we go into like Morbius, but now that everything's kind of put back together, I'm curious how Morbius is really going to fit in as far as what universe Morbius is in, right?
In the end, Venom went back to his own universe, which is where Morbius is, because Morbius refers to Venom in the trailers that we've seen for Morbius. Right. So so Tom Hardy's not in the Marvel Cinematic at this point,
right?
But there's something left by Tom Hardy's Venom that's going to be there. So we won't have, Morbius.
But we also see Michael Keaton's Vulture in that, and so is that just, or is that not Vulture, and that's just Michael Keaton?
Maybe it's just Michael
Batman.
Keaton. I don't know. I guess we won't know for sure until we see it. But is it just that universe's version of the Vulture?
That's true. Yeah.
But who knows? I guess till we see it, we won't know. So
yeah.
All right, we're gonna grade this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm giving this a 4.0. Very good. And very good is, not as good as it sounds when we're talking about comic rating. I mean, almost all of the Marvel movies and almost all of the DC movies, with a couple of obvious exceptions, I would rather rewatch than watch this one. Because it just does absolutely nothing for me. I could literally go to the Charlie Cox scene, watch that, I could be done.
It's just to remind the audience, a very good 4.0 is a below average collectible with multiple moderate defects.
I think they understand the 1 to 10 scale, so a 4 is where we're at on this movie. So, all right, what do you guys got?
I'd put it. I got a 7.5 on it, a very fine minus. I think it's above average still. There's still good pieces of it. I found a lot of defects for me, but and maybe I'll feel better about it after a second view. And I am interested. I am looking forward to when it comes out. And I will buy it when it comes out and add it to the collection of my Spider-Man movies. And I will watch it again, like right as soon as it goes, and be like, well, maybe I missed a little bit of maybe for as much as the logic maybe doesn't line up, maybe there's a lot more heart in it that I'm missing, and maybe that's all that really matters at the end of it, is just that it was a good entertaining movie, and so I'm hoping to find a little bit more of that when I rewatch it.
All right,
and
that's up to you.
That's the basis for my grade and it is for really all the movies. If I was happy when I left, if I felt satisfied, I felt like it. I don't analyze it, overanalyze it during the movie. Now afterwards, I won't say that I'm not able to have second thoughts after we have discussions with other people that have watched it, like what we do. But I'm not ashamed to say that I would give this a 9.0, a very fine / near mint. And I walked away from this movie very happy with it. And nothing shook the foundation for me as far as the things that aren't necessarily believable to change my feeling about it.
Well, speaking of shake, so our new segment moving forward is going to be our CLZ shake, and we're going to do this super fast this time, so none of us can spend a lot of time talking about our book. So if you're familiar with the CLZ Comics app, there is a feature in it where you can, I actually didn't know about this till Mike told me about it, where if you go into your list of books and you shake your phone, it will pick one of the books from your collection at random. So I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go first. I want everybody to talk about the number of books that are in your collection before you do this. So believe it or not, my personal collection, for anybody who's ever seen me at a convention, this will surprise them. But the number of books that I have that I consider mine in CLZ is 1,280. So my actual personal collection is actually relatively small. So I don't know if I can get this at an angle where you can actually read what. There we go. So I'm gonna do the shake here. See, I got lights just. There we go.
There we go.
Oh, and my phone light went off. All right. Okay. So my book is Silver Surfer Volume 3, and it is issue number 43. So this book is in my collection because I'm basically at issue number 15. Ron Lim took over the art duties on the Silver Surfer. Now I do not remember the specifics of this issue, but what's funny is that issue 43 is the issue before 44, where the Infinity Gauntlet gets reintroduced back into, or gets introduced into the Marvel Universe. So that's in Silver Surfer issue 44. So here this is written by Jim Starlin, art by Ron Lim. And like I said, I do not remember what happens in this issue, but I think I'm missing a handful of issues from this Silver Surfer run. Let me see if I can remember how to see what issues I'm missing from that run. I gotta scroll down to my S's, but it's not a lot of issues. But I have this because this is spacefaring Silver Surfer, not too terribly tied into the Marvel proper universe. Let's see. So I'm missing 125, 128. Yeah, so I'm apparently missing 2 issues from that entire run of 140 something issues.
Wow,
so,
that's a good.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's why I have that in my collection. Amazing Ron Lim art, and again, it's leading up into the events they're going to give us Infinity Gauntlet.
You know, I'd never seen any Ron Lim's art until Infinity Gauntlet, and that was my first exposure to him, and I liked it.
All right, so which one of you guys is next?
We'll give it a shake, Mike.
Why not? Okay. Shake, shake, shake. Loading random comic. So what I have here, and by the way, I have 11,983.
So 10 times, 10 times my collection.
That's so I've sold about 3,000 over the last couple of years. So I have Who's Who in the Legion of Superheroes. So of all comics for me to get, it's an index comic. But it's specific to the Legion of Superheroes. It was released in July of 1988. I'm sorry, it's number 3.
Because there are a lot of Legionnaires.
The Legion of Superheroes has a long history, a lot of forgettable characters. It's in the Who's Who. I loved Who's Who proper, especially all those George Perez covers and. But Who's Who in the Legion of Superheroes, I only have a few of those. I don't know how many without losing this page here, but I only have 2 or 3 of them.
Well, there probably were only 3 or 4.
Give me a second and I'll check. But first of all, I want to say that we had Barbara Randall did some most of the writing, and it was that's about all I can say about it. There's no story. It's just basically demographics and origins and stuff like that for characters that are from that that genre. So let me pull up.
I'm getting ready to tell you how many issues there are right now. There were 7 issues of Who's Who in the Legion of Superheroes.
And I'll tell you here in a sec how many I actually have. It didn't take me back to that actual. I have all 7. Boy, I am a loser.
Oh.
I got all 7 of a book that really didn't interest me, but I am a completist. So there you have it. That was mine.
That cover number, the 7th one, is really cool because it has little squares of like how many of the Legionnaires on it.
So many.
It's just just crazy.
Yeah. So many, and what I do like is that you get a lot of the Steve Lytle covers through these, and he was the premier Legion artist, at least cover artist. He did a lot of stories too, but he couldn't keep up with the pace. But when you think of 80s Legion, it was Steve Lytle.
All right, Chad, your turn.
All right, I've got 2,223 comics, almost 2s across the board. And let's see. We're gonna get here. Fight Club 2, number 1. That's a pretty good one.
Well, we can't.
This was written. I did read this. I was really concerned.
Talk about Fight Club. You're breaking
that's
the
true.
rules.
We can't even talk about this is came out in 2015. This was like randomly all of a sudden, almost or over 15 years later, Chuck Palahniuk decided that he was going to write a sequel to Fight Club and do it in comic book form. I really enjoyed this run. This has a David Mack cover, and this is issue 1 of it. I haven't read Fight Club 3 though, and I need to get around to that because I'm sure it's pretty good too. I mean, I thought the story was really well written on that. It's like 12 issues though. It was a lot longer than I expected it to be.
Oh, wow. I figured that would have been like a 4-issue series at best. So.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. We've been at this for a while, so why don't we wrap it up? Why don't you tell everybody where they can reach out to you at?
Okay. My email address is m as in Mike .atchison. That's ATCHISON 90@gmail.com.
All right, Shad.
All right, you can find me on Facebook at Shad Schubert. That's SHAADSCHUBERT.
And I'm Scott Reed. You can find me at burgcomics.com, BURG comics.com. Has links to all the social media. And if you've enjoyed the episode, please tell everybody about us. And we will be back soon, and hope you enjoy our new segment with the CLZ Shake.
I think that's what it is. 1280. One of them is the first appearance of Animal Man. And one of them is the first appearance of Animal Man. I want to wear you down on that. Or as I could say, Animal Man! Yeah. Where's that from? That's from the DC Nation cartoon. They did these little shorts on DC Nation. That's those were the best. Yeah, the Animal Man was awesome. Like he like Darkseid is attacking New York, and he's upset about him like littering or something like that. You know. I need to track those down and watch those.
Yeah, they were difficult to get for a while, like, because it was kind of just reliant on YouTube, like people organized them on YouTube, and then when they had the DC Universe app that actually had video on it, they had everything on there and categorized by character. So you could be like, I just want to watch all 3 Animal Man episodes or whatever. You could do it that way, but I think I don't know if they did that on HBO when they moved over to HBO Max. So I bet it's all just in the Wild West on YouTube again.
That's what I had to do for Spider-Man No Way Home. It's been long enough that I'm like, oh man, I need to watch some video clips of it. And I mean, it was fun rewatching them. But when we wait this long, I just read the synopsis on IMDb. Is what I did. Oh, okay.
I think it comes out on home video on March 1st, so we're right on the cusp of like being able to watch it at home.
We could do one of those live watches, you know, where you commentary on it, comment on it. I've listened to a couple podcasts that did that. It's gonna be on Stars though, which I don't have Stars, so. I wonder if I've got that through DirecTV. Well, it's an add-on package. Yeah, then I don't. But I've got HBO Max, so. Or I've got It's not on Disney. Oh, it's not on Disney. Oh, no kidding. Only on Stars. Really? Huh. This was a joint, but this was joint between. No, it was all Sony. No kidding. Sony owns it. Well, good job, Sony. They kind of made up for some things. All right. Well, then I just need to go buy it. Yeah. I'm in no rush to buy it. Well, it's wow. Okay. I'll save my comments for the official comment section. All right. I can just tell you why you're wrong. Well, you know what opinions are like. See, I can say that on when we're not recording. Well, we're recording, but hey, I like to hear that at triple, whatever that double speed or triple speed is. No, Scott doesn't want that explicit rating. I don't know if that would even matter or something like that, but yeah, it's all that context. Because that is one of George Carlin's 7 words you can't say on TV, so. You can say the ASS part, you can't say that. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. And here's the funny thing, like on Parks and Rec, when they would show that, they would bleep the second syllable, not the first syllable. Yep. It feels like it's the other way around. Yeah, that's crazy. Well, you know. It's in the Bible, so. There you go. Well, the first half is. The first half is, yeah. Now, my wife's favorite one is. Yeah, she'll call me that once in a while. Do you deserve it? Fuck yeah, sure. Of course. And even if I don't, I just accept it because there's no sense fighting it, I'm just almost done eating. Take your time, Scott. Yeah. All right, what order are we going to do?
41 first, and then 42.
Hey, Shad, you're coming along really good. I like that. You mean between Immortal Hulk? Well, I'd say I just psyched myself up for Immortal Hulk for not being... I'm the only one that has... Am I the only one that can't say immortal the same way twice? Immortal, yeah. The Immortal Hulk? Immortal. But not mortal. Immortal? Immortal Hulk? You know, that Peacemaker song is in my head. If you'd like me to sing it, okay.
Do you really want to taste that?
It's an earworm, man. Throw a bone to your invisible dog. I don't even know what's all that hair metal, that glam. Oh gosh, metal. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know some of the popular stuff like Cinderella or Firehouse or Poison, but some of them, yeah, the 11th Street Boys. Are they real or they made up? I think that's real. I didn't look it up. That's the name of the song. Oh, okay. But they were talking. It was like the first. What was that band called, Shad? They were from like Scandinavia. They were considered the first glam rock.
I'm gonna look it up.
Well, you know who choreographed
Rocks.
Hanoi Rocks.
Hanoi
Rocks, yeah, like Hanoi, yeah. Vietnam, whatever. Do you know who choreographed that dance number for Peacemaker? No. Alan Tudyk.
Did he really?
Yes. Who's he? Okay, so he was the pilot in Firefly. He was. Have you ever seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil? Oh my gosh, you need to watch this movie. Okay. Okay. So what else is he? He's a voice actor on a ton of stuff. Like he's on is he like a voice on Harley Quinn or something?
Yeah, I think so. And he was. I don't know if you saw I didn't watch it, but that Resident Alien show that was on Sci-Fi. He's the main character on that.
Yep. He's been in all kinds of stuff. I mean, you'll know him when you see him. But he also choreographed that dance number. So. But really, if you have not seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil, oh my gosh, it's a comedy. Yes, it's a horror.
I haven't seen that either yet.
Oh my, it's just basically a spoof.
Yeah.
So it is. It's really good. Okay.